The Cold War was a long period of tension between the United States and the Soviet Union after World War II. They didn't fight directly but competed for power through threats, spying, and supporting opposite sides in smaller wars. It ended in 1991 when the Soviet Union collapsed. The two major ideologies in this were America's democratic system as well as the Soviet Union's communist system. Today, we will dive into 25 crazy facts about this conflict within the 1900s. Number 1. The Cold War began almost immediately after World War II ended. Tensions started in 1947 with the Truman Doctrine and lasted until 1991, spanning 44 years of global rivalry. Number 2. In September 1983, Soviet early warning systems falsely reported incoming U.S. nuclear missiles. Lieutenant Colonel Stanislav Petrov was the officer on duty. He chose not to report it as an actual launch, suspecting a malfunction, likely preventing a nuclear exchange. Number 3. The US and USSR agreed not to arm space. The Outer Space Treaty of 1967 banned nuclear weapons in space. Despite the intense rivalry, both sides agreed space should not be weaponized, yet both explored secret military satellites. 4. The CIA tried to turn a cat into a spy. Operation Acoustic Kitty aimed to use a surgically implanted microphone inside a cat to spy on the Soviets. The cat was hit by a taxi during its first mission. The program was eventually scrapped. 5. The Cuban Missile Crisis brought the world to the brink of nuclear war. In October 1962, the U.S. discovered Soviet nuclear missiles in Cuba. The 13-day standoff ended with a secret deal. The U.S. removed missiles from Turkey, and the Soviets pulled theirs from Cuba. 6. The Soviets beat the U.S. to nearly every space milestone. They launched the first satellite in Sputnik, the first human in space in Yuri Gagarin, and the first woman in space, Valentina Tereshkova. These victories shocked the U.S. and escalated the space race even further. 7. The U.S. and the USSR created the Red Phone Hotline. After the Cuban Missile Crisis, a direct line, not actually a red phone, was established in 1963 so the White House and Kremlin could communicate instantly to avoid a nuclear war. Number 8. The military developed early internet and GPS for Cold War use. Both ARPANET, the internet precursor, and GPS were born from Cold War era Department of Defense projects for communication and navigation superiority. 9. U.S. scientists built an atomic-powered airplane. The nuclear-powered aircraft project tried to build a bomber that could stay airborne for weeks using a small reactor. It failed due to radiation shielding issues. 10. The Cold War ended without a single gunshot, but with bankruptcy. The USSR collapsed in 1991, in part because it could no longer afford the arms race. The Soviet economy had spent as much as 25% of its GDP on defense throughout its history. 11. The U.S. practiced nuclear bombing American cities in drills. Under Operation Sky Shield, U.S. bombers flew simulated attack runs over major cities to test air defenses, terrifying citizens unaware of the drills. 12. The U.S. created the Department of Education as part of the Cold War. In 1980, the department was formed partly to improve American schools and compete with Soviet technological advancement. 13. The Cold War ended with a handshake in space. In 1975, the Apollo-Soyuz mission docked an American and Soviet spacecraft in orbit, symbolizing détente and the hope for peace. 14. Communists were banned from many U.S. government jobs due to the stigma and fear that was created throughout the Cold War. Under McCarthyism, thousands of Americans were investigated and blacklisted for alleged communist ties, many without evidence. 15. The U.S. tested over 1,000 nuclear weapons during the Cold War. Many were detonated at the Nevada test site and in the Pacific Ocean, causing environmental and health damage. 16. The Soviets trained kids in nuclear attack drills too. Just like the U.S. duck and cover drills, Soviet Union schools conducted regular civil defense training in preparation for a nuclear war. 17. The U.S. tested nuclear bombs in the atmosphere. Between 1945 and 1963, the US conducted above-ground nuclear tests, exposing soldiers and civilians to radiation. 18. The Korean War was the first major Cold War conflict. Fought for 4 years from 1950 to 1953, it ended in a stalemate and left the Korean peninsula divided to this day. 19. Olympic Games were boycotted by both sides. Ironically, the US and Soviet Union hosted back-to-back Olympics. The US boycotted the 1980 Moscow Olympics, and the USSR boycotted the 1984 Los Angeles Olympics. 20. Propaganda was brought to life throughout the Cold War on both sides. Movies, music, radio, and literature were all used to create a sense of national pride and disdain for the opposing side and ideology. 21. The Cold War officially ended on December 26, 1991. That's the day the Soviet Union dissolved, marking the end of the conflict and the victory of the Western democratic capitalism. 22. When the USSR launched Sputnik 1 in 1957, Americans feared they were losing the space race and that the Soviets could drop bombs from space. This fear led to a massive US funding in education and the formation of NASA in 1958. 23. The Cuban Missile Crisis brought the world within minutes of nuclear war. In October 1962, the US discovered Soviet nuclear missiles in Cuba. At one point, a Soviet submarine almost launched a nuclear torpedo after being depth-charged by the US Navy. Only a single officer's refusal prevented it. 24. The CIA secretly funded American artists and writers. To combat Soviet propaganda, the CIA secretly backed cultural programs and abstract artists like Jackson Pollock to showcase freedom of expression in the West. 25. The Cold War tensions shaped the 1960s through 1980s pop culture. TV shows like The Twilight Zone, movies like Dr. Strangelove, and even superheroes like Captain America reflected Cold War anxieties and propaganda. God bless you all. Thank you for all watching. Make sure to subscribe to the channel for more videos and let me know down below in the comments what other videos you would like to see and other facts that you have about the Cold War. God bless you all and have an amazing day.